Welcome to my class. I hope you're doing well. Now, in this lesson, I will be teaching you Java lesson as well. And the topic which I have chosen is called objects and classes. Objects and classes is a combination. It's the overall topic which is continued as polymorphism, inheritance, defining methods, defining classes. So overall, this is a topic, this is a huge topic, which I have chosen the one part, which is objects and classes. So let's start. If you have any questions, you might ask me further after the explanation of the slides. And the class will be included as a theory. After all, the theory will be combined with the practice examples. So what you will be learning in this topic? In this topic, we're going to learn how to define classes. Further on, the methods are really important while we use OP tasks. That's why how to define the methods, how to create a variable with a modifier. So there are modifiers which are called string, integer, double, float, boolean. These are all modifiers which can be defined in any kind of topic like object-oriented programming. And later on, there are constructors which are really important. We're going to learn how to define a constructor. The keyword which is called this is a modification of saying that this is a car, which is an object. This is an object. This is a car. This is a pencil. This is a computer. This is, for example, this is a chair. So any kind of objects in a real world can be used in this class. That's why we're going to learn how to define them. And the important part of understanding how to define the variables, how to define what methods, and when to define methods is also shown or mentioned in a UML diagram. UML diagram is a part of OP which includes all the variables, all the getter setter methods, which can be private, which can be public. This is also can be understood by looking at the UML diagram. So these are all the objectives. This includes in the OP tasks. So in OP, the most important part is, so OP is an object-oriented programming, which is mostly based as an object. We can define an object in a real world, like I mentioned previously. It can be a wardrobe, it can be a car, the color of the car, the year of the car, the age of a person, the height of a person, the radius of a circle, the circumference of a circle, the area of a circle. So this, all of them can be included in an OP task. And let's see here. For example, this is a class called a circle. In a circle, in order to find out the area of a circle, we should define the radius. And later on, in order to find out the area, we have to make some calculations. So these calculations should be included in a method. That's why in here, which is pointed, which is written in a red, class name circle, method get area. When we define what radius we would like to calculate, later on there can be more objects. There can be rectangle, there can be pentagon, there can be hexagon, which we can calculate what we want, like area, circumference, the height of a circle in order to find the area of a rectangle, height, width, all of them should be defined. And so classes, all the objects, all the methods, all the modifiers, all the constructors are all included in a class. That's why defining a class is a very important behavior in Java. So all the parameters, all the constructors, all the objects are included in a class. This is one of the example of how defining a variable which is called radius. The modifier of a radius is double. And in the next line, circle with a parenthesis is an empty constructor, which is not all of the time necessary to use. But if we would like to include some names, some informations in the constructor, in the parentheses, we are going to include the parameters, the data fields. For example, string name inside the parentheses. This is the one of the example, like double radius. And later on, the second constructor, which is filled with an object. So there can be an empty constructor, there can be a constructor with the object with the data fields or with the parameters. And in the second constructor, we have a radius, which is defined as a new parameter, and radius is equal to new radius. So what the new radius will have will be sent to the radius parameter. But instead of doing that, we can directly define this, that radius is equal to radius. So this will be more practical and more shorter. And later on, it calculates the area of a circle, which is radius times the pi. But instead of doing that in the Java, we can directly mention 3.14 as a pi math, that pi times radius square, okay, r square. We are going to solve an example for that. So this is one of the example. We can see this as a UML diagram. In the UML diagram, the first field is a data, which we have to define. The second part is the constructor, a second constructor, and a method which is called getArea. And the getArea, the modifier of the area should be double. For example, as I said, an empty constructor is called when there are no parameters, it's called no argument constructor, or we can call it as an empty constructor. And constructors cannot have a return type because we define the parameters in the constructor in order to use it in the further steps, like creating new methods, getters, setters. But if we would like to have a string method, which is also printed in the test class while we define a class for the OP, for the objects, we shouldn't be adding return in the constructor. For example, this is an object in the test class is defined. The object name, the constructor name, and the class name should be all the time same. Be careful for that. Whenever we define a constructor, the name of the constructor should be equal or same to our class. And when we want to define a radius, for example. Inside the objects we create in a test class, we can include the radius. But in order to include this in the object, we have to define the parameter in the constructor, which I will be also explaining in the example. And so this is also one of the example of creating an object in the test class, circle, my circle. In here, my circle can be a different name, any kind of name. You can mention this in the object. For example, we can have as many as objects we want, but the object of the object name should be same with the class name, but the second declaration, the name of the object can be different. Here, like I have mentioned, the circle, the radius, if we don't want to have any value in the object, if there is no value in the object, like in the second line, the type or the value of the parameter should be defined in the main class, which we included in the first line in an object. The radius is 5. In the second line, if we didn't define any value in the object, this means we have defined it in the main class. if we didn't define any value in the object, so we have to, this means we have set it in the main class, which is inside the class, and say double radius is equal to 5.0, double radius is equal to 1.0. This should be defined, otherwise the code will give an error. Let's have an example. For example, we have a main class here. Let's give a basic example. Let's create one more class, which is, let's give this as a test name. Test main, and our next class will be a main class, which we want to say our name information, our surname information, and age, height. It can be all defined. First of all, let's give a modifier, string name, string surname. Integer is only defined for numbers, for ages, for height. For example, integer age, integer height. Or let's say integer cell number. We have defined our variables. Now we have to give a constructor. The constructor name should be same with the class name. That's why we say public main. Public means is visible by the other classes. And now we are defining our parameters in a class. String name, string surname, integer age. Let's define integers in another constructor, which is possible. Now we are using the keyword this. This dot name is equal to name. This dot surname is equal to surname. And now we have defined the two parameters in a constructor. Now we would like to define another constructor which will include the age and the cell number. And we will do the same. This that age is equal to age. This that cell number is equal to cell number. The reason why we do this is when we define an object in the test class, we can only set value for these two parameters in the first object. And on the second object, we can only use these two parameters. Otherwise, it's going to throw an exception. And later on, we have defined our constructor, and by right-clicking, generate, let me see, let me make sure it's visible. Generate, right click, click generate, getter and setter, which is also here. Here we have, let me show it again. Right click, click generate, getter and setter. So we can select all these options, and this will automatically create our getter method and setter method. Without getter methods, we cannot get any value from the code, and we cannot set any value to the code. And after doing this, we would like to include a toString method in order to have a better result. Let's say public string toString. We are going to return this as a return type. And let's say my name is plus get name plus. If we would like to combine all the informations, the only thing we have to do is add plus. My age is plus get age plus my and this is surname, get surname. My age is plus get age plus my number is plus my number. Get number.